Hi, I'm Richard, and we're having an AI takeover here at the meeting show. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to start firstly by asking these gentlemen to introduce themselves. Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim, co-founder CEO of Grip, the first AI-powered event matchmaking solution. And we work with a lot of big trade show and conference organizers to improve the return on time of exhibitors and visitors.
Great, thank you. Danny.
I'm Danny from Field Drive. We do on-site event services technology. We work with facial recognition technology, batch printing, and behavior of delegates during an event.
Excellent. Now, for some people who didn't have the chance to see your session, I'm going to start with a very simple question. In a nutshell, AI, what is it?
Well, I think, as we explained during the session, it's nothing more really than just as humans do. We have input, vision, feelings, and so forth, and then we process that with our brains, and then there's an output, an action, or we start speaking, or something like that. And it's pretty much the same with any type of artificial intelligence system. It has some input, some data that comes in, it does some processing, and then afterwards there is a certain output. It might be that it knows if you're registered for the event or not, based on your photo, or it might know who you should be meeting with, and it can give you recommendations of who you should be meeting with. So it's very similar as how the brain works at a very basic level.
You guys have done a session this morning. What level of knowledge do you feel that people currently have about what AI can do?
Well, I think there's a long way to go within the meeting industry. You see, AI is everywhere. When you watch Netflix, when you have Spotify, when you look at Google, this predictive behavior, they already know what you're going to do based on your previous behavior, and it's something that's also coming to the meeting and event industry, and it's up to the creativity of the meeting organizer how to make it to the benefit of every stakeholder within the event, whether it's a trade show organizer, the delegate himself. So the first question should be what's in it for me as a delegate? How can this improve my experience as a delegate?
Yep.
And I think if you look at the current status, it depends a bit on the industry. We see associations are often in a long, tedious decision-making process. Some of them are still capturing registration with Excel and email. Other ones are more tech-savvy in the technology industry, and they will be likely to adopt this type of new upcoming technology more. So there's way more possible than what is adopted now today.
Yep. Yeah, I think AI as a concept, there is a certain level of understanding that organizers already have, and there's maybe some initial some extra pieces, like how can we use, how does it work behind the scenes to actually make these things work. But beyond that, I don't think that organizers need to know much more about it. It's a technology just like any other, and we can take advantage of it to create better experiences. I don't think many know how individual coding languages work, but they don't need to know that. It's just about the outcome of it, and we should be working together with the organizers to make sure that outcome is there.
Now, I know you guys had a very big audience and a very enthusiastic audience this morning, so I guess many people will be thinking, this is great, I love the idea. What's the starting point in terms of implementing AI within an event?
I think the first starting point should be your objective. What, as an organization, do I want to get out? What is adding value for me? Not because AI is cool, and not because facial recognition is cool, or not because set your objectives first, and then we will choose a technology that matches those objectives. Yep. I think that should be a basic rule for every technology you adapt, not for the sake of technology, but for the sake of your objectives.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's the first question we often ask in is what does success look like? And then from that point you can kind of look backwards. All right, what are the steps that we need to take in order to get there? Often it's around an objective of how many visitors a certain exhibitor meets, and so then we can look backwards and say, okay, that means you need to collect this information. This is the kind of setup that we should do in order to make that happen.
One issue that's always going to be important for meetings planners is this issue of budget. So how much are we looking at in terms of the cost of implementing AI at the start?
Well, I think if you have your objective and you want to reach a certain goal, AI will allow you to reduce the costs of achieving that goal. imagine that you capture all that data and you need to go through Excel list to analyze it and to see who's matching who. Imagine the labor you would put in there to get the same output and the same to fit in the same objective. That's where AI comes in, because the system is working for you. It's learning, it's becoming more and more intelligent, and it saves you time and it gives you real-time data you can act upon. So the value for the organizer is not about the cost, it's about how much time and effort do you need to reach a specific objective, and that's where AI comes in and actually saves you a lot of money.
Yeah, I think it's the same for us. Like if you think about like, well, how much does it cost to use a platform like Groot? It's more like thinking about as a starting point, what does success look like? Let's say that every exhibitor here at the meeting show had 3 more high quality meetings with potential leads. That has a huge amount of value for the meeting show, for the individual exhibitors, and it will result in the show being better and exhibitors coming back and getting bigger booths next year. So there is a huge return on investment of those technologies that can really help make your event better, just as like what Field Drive does.
It sounds very promising. Is there a downside, or were there concerns in any areas from your audience about the future with AI?
Data privacy obviously is one of the major concerns, certainly with GDPR in place now and a lot of gray zones still in that area. So I think as we implement AI or any other technology, facial recognition or anything that has to do with data capturing or biometrics data in particular, we should be very much aware of how we are using it, informing the people and making sure that this that is contained within the objective. So as I asked Tim earlier during his session, it would be ideal if you could capture all this data throughout all these different shows. You go to the meeting show, you go to Confix, you go to all these trade shows. Wouldn't it be great if we can collect all that data and aggregate it and build a profile just like LinkedIn, but then an AI profile based on your behavior throughout everything you do? That would be ideal, but in terms of GDPR, you need to anonymize those data, and you can go up like, if you organize something in the HR industry, you're likely to get like this percentage of take-up. So you're getting more demographic data out of it rather than personal data, and the system learns throughout these processes. So I think data privacy is a very important element how you cope with it.
Yeah, and one of the premises of our talk was like the doom scenario. Do we still need event managers? And so we looked that up. There is this website that gives you an answer of how likely it is that a certain job will be extinct within 10 years. I think the answer was 3.7% chance that will happen for event managers. So for the near future, I think that event managers will be okay. So there were some questions around that, but we managed to answer those.
I think the worst one was show presenters or something, or that's likely to be, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be talking to a robot. Yeah, for sure.
One other question I must ask, which is a very controversial topic at the moment, which is about security. And earlier we spoke about the fact that all this data, even when it's anonymized, can sometimes be potentially used if it fell into the wrong hands. We were talking about the people at a certain military base who were all using a jogging app.
Yeah.
And I wonder, is there that kind of danger that organisers ought to be a little bit fearful of, that there's just too much data that could fall in the wrong hands?
Well, I definitely think that we need to be conscious of that, and we need to, this was clearly a mistake from this particular platform that exposed some information that was actually highly sensitive. So with everything you do, you need to be very, very careful of what you're sharing, how you're doing that. So you need to be, with GDPR as well, you need to be very secure about what you do and how you do it. And that's always been the case, but probably with the more data you have, the more sensitive it is and the more important it therefore becomes. So yeah, you need to keep it very much in mind. There is always that risk that somebody gets the wrong login credentials or something like that. So you need to make sure that there are safety mechanisms in place to circumvent that.
That's great. We'll leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you both very much indeed. Can I assure you that I am now going to go and have a look at this list and try and find a job that isn't going to be replaced in the short future by AI.
You might best retire. So
thank you both. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.